History tells the story of the world and of our lives. Sometimes that history goes bump in the night. Broadcasting from the center of oddity and the supernatural in Central Florida, it's the History Goes Bump podcast.
Hello, you spectacular people. Welcome to History Goes Bump Redux. I'm your host, Diane.
And this is Kelly.
Kelly, on this episode, we're going back to another of our really, really early ones, one of the first ones we ever did, the Valley of the Kings.
Oh, I'm looking forward to doing this Redux.
Getting ready to go to Egypt, are ya?
I am.
You ready to go back?
I'm ready. Egypt is a land of ancient treasures and wonders. Pharaohs were honored in death with immense public monuments and tombs like pyramids, temples, and obelisks. The Old Kingdom of Egypt built their places of death in Giza and the Nile Delta. The New Kingdom pharaohs of Egypt wanted to be buried closer to their dynastic roots, and they had their crypts placed in the hills of Luxor. This area became known as the Valley of the Kings. The Valley of the Kings would end up housing the remains of at least 60 Egyptian nobles, including pharaohs from King Tut to Ramses II. There are more than tombs here, though. There are tales of curses and hauntings in the Valley of the Kings.
Luxor, Egypt is the site of the ancient Egyptian city of Thebes, which is located in upper southern Egypt. Luxor is considered the world's largest open-air museum and houses the necropolis, the temple complexes of Luxor and Karnak, the Valley of the Queens, and the Valley of the Kings. Luxor actually means the palaces in Arabic. This city of Thebes became the capital of Egypt during the New Kingdom. The god Amun-Ra, according to myth, made this his home. Amun-Ra was the merging of the god of air, known as Amun, and the sun god, known as Ra. He was a major god for Thebes and was said to be the father of pharaohs, and he was the one who gave the pharaohs their power. There was actually a Theban triad of deities. Amun-Ra was the chief, but there was also Mut, who wants to be called Mut, who was a mother goddess. Her name literally means mother. Wow, that's great. Mut means mother. And Kanzo, who was the moon god. Basically, Kanzo was the child of Amun and Mut. He is compared to Horus often in myth, and Horus, we've talked about this on other episodes, was the child of Isis and Osiris.
From the 18th dynasty to the 20th dynasty, Thebes prospered and became powerful politically and militarily. This time period was known as the New Kingdom and was the Golden Age of Egypt. This spanned 1550 to 1070 BC. The city would eventually fade during the late period, 664 to 332 BC, and fell into ruins. The Valley of the Kings is also known as Biban el-Muluk, which means doorway or gateway of the kings. Its construction began in 1539 BC. The valley has two branches, an eastern and western branch. The eastern branch is called Ta Set At, which means the Great Place. The royal tombs are located in this eastern branch. The western branch is larger, but only contains a few tombs. The pharaohs of the New Kingdom chose the valley as their final resting place.
The first pharaoh of the New Kingdom was Ahmose I. He was the last pharaoh to be buried in a pyramid. Ahmose I was a member of the Theban royal house and assumed the throne after his father and older brother died. His father died when he was 7, and his brother died when he was 10. So, usually call the second in line, you're the spare or what have you. And you don't figure you're probably going to rise to the throne, but boy, did he. And he did it fairly young. He would launch the New Kingdom, which was when ancient Egypt reached the peak of its power. The location of the pharaoh's tomb changed with the New Kingdom, and pyramids were no longer built. Ahmose I himself wouldn't be buried in the Valley of the Kings. The crypts of the Valley of the Kings were dug into the limestone hills, and they are all very similar. They consist of 3 corridors, an antechamber, and a sunken sarcophagus chamber. When a new pharaoh began his reign, construction on his tomb began. That would be a little unnerving. It's like, long live the king, now build his tomb. The construction usually lasted 6 years. The interior of the tombs were inscribed with words from the books of the Netherworld and the Book of the Dead. And Kelly, don't those books sound very interesting?
They sure do.
Let's talk about them.
The books of the Netherworld included the Book of Adoring Re in the west, the Book of the Hidden Chamber, the Book of Gates, the Book of Caverns, the books of the creation of the solar disk, and the books of the solar Osirian unity. The Book of Adoring Re in the west was reserved specifically for pharaohs and high nobility. There are 2 parts, with the first invoking the sun god Re in 75 different forms, and the second part features prayers for the pharaoh who assumes the roles of both nature and deities. It basically brings into union the king and the gods. The Book of the Hidden Chamber is also known as the Egyptian Amduat. Only one non-royal person in the New Kingdom used an Amduat for his tomb. Otherwise, this was reserved for royalty.
And I don't know why he got to do it. I don't know if he was, had some kind of a personal relationship with people who were royal, and so they wanted to honor him in this way, or if he just did a lot for the community and they wanted to honor him in that way. But he is literally the only person that got to have this done.
This book is broken into 12 sections to represent the 12 hours of the night. It describes the world beyond death with word and image. The Book of Gates was its companion.
The Book of Gates was an ancient Egyptian funerary text that dates to the New Kingdom in the 18th dynasty. This tells the story of a newly dead person's soul traveling with the sun god Ra as he travels through the underworld during the night before he resurrects. As the soul moves along, it goes through a series of gates, hence the name of the book. All of these gates have serpent deities guarding them, and the deceased soul needs to know their names. I just loved reading this because, Kelly, anytime I think about like a serpent deity, I always kind of think of something that's a little bit on the dark side of stuff. Yeah. I know you love your snakes.
No, but I agree.
And so this idea that the deceased soul needs to know their names, one of the things that is kind of legendary about demonic activity or demons specifically is if you know their names, you hold some kind of power over them. To me, this kind of likens to that, where it's like these serpent-like demons are guarding these gates, and you need to know their name so that you can get through there. Some would get through unharmed, but others are tormented. Tombs in the Valley of the Kings have scenes from the Book of Gates depicted on the walls. The earliest depictions are in the tomb of Pharaoh Horemheb. The Book of Caverns is also known as the Book of the Duat, and details the sun god Ra's journey through the underworld as he encounters 12 caverns. There's a deity in each cavern that presents danger and a challenge. This would be a guide for the deceased to find rewards or receive punishments based on their actions. Duat is the name for the underworld. So earlier we had used that term, Amduat, so that was basically kind of a way of saying the underworld.
The books of the creation of the solar disk is also known as the Book of the Earth and features a story about Osiris, Ra, and Ba. This is the journey of Ra through the earth god Aker. The Ancient Egyptian Books of the Afterlife by Eric Hornung, published in 1999, describes parts of this book depicting the realm of the dead with Osiris as the primary figure, and there is a tomb that is guarded by serpents.
So here again, another area being guarded by serpents.
Beneath Osiris are the gods Anubis and an unknown god who has their arms stretched out as though they are trying to protect the corpse. There are scenes of renewal and punishment, and the gods of punishment are holding cauldrons.
They're going to burn you alive.
The books of the solar Osirian unity obviously reveals the union of Ra and Osiris, and this is a giant figure.
Yeah, well, I would imagine if you put two gods together, you are going to get something big. The Book of the Dead got its start with the New Kingdom. This contains several magic spells to assist a dead person in their journey through the Duat and into the afterlife. Many priests wrote this and contributed to it over 1,000 years. So it took 1,000 years to write this Book of the Dead. The book was placed in the coffin or burial chamber of a deceased person. These books were generally papyrus scrolls with hieroglyphic or hieratic script on them. The best example of one is at the British Museum, and this is the Papyrus of Ani, who was an Egyptian scribe. There are around 192 spells identified in the Book of the Dead, and they serve a range of purposes. Some incantations were to help preserve parts of the deceased. Others were to help reunite parts of the deceased. These other books reveal how dangerous the underworld could be, and some spells offered protection. The book also revealed the mystical names of many entities, which the Egyptians believed gave them power over those entities. And I see kind of where we're getting our ideas about demons and such. There was no hell for the Egyptians, and so the worst punishment to them was to cease to exist. Anubis would bring out a scale to weigh a dead person's heart. One side of the scale had an ostrich feather from Maat, and the heart would be placed on the other scale. If the heart was lighter than the feather, the soul could go to the afterlife. But if it was heavier, the soul's heart was fed to some kind of best way I could describe it is a crocodile hippo monster. I don't know how you put a crocodile and a hippo together.
Okay.
Clearly it was some kind of water creature, and you would be extinguished for eternity. So basically that was like going to hell for the Egyptians. Kelly, shall we talk about mummies?
Yes, let's.
I mean, you can't talk about pharaohs in Egypt without talking about mummies.
I want my mummy.
You want your mummy? When a pharaoh or other noble died, they were mummified after a formal announcement. The preparations took 3 months. The mummification process took longer because the body was placed in natron for 70 days, and for those who don't know, that is a mixture of sodium carbonate and around 17% sodium bicarbonate. So basically it was like putting the body in salt for a while.
Salted meat?
Oh, Kelly.
Sorry.
Mummification was used as a way to preserve the body so that it could reanimate in the afterlife. Their burial chambers were stocked with elaborate preparations that included treasures, furniture, clothes, food, wine, beer. We got to have the beer for the afterlife. Come on. And jewelry. Pets were buried with their owners as well. So, oh well, Spot, your owner died. Guess what?
Oh, no.
62 of these tombs were discovered before 1922. The most recent tomb was discovered in 2005. Most of these tombs were robbed well before they were officially discovered. So obviously these tombs were discovered long before 1922 because they had already been ransacked. When Greek writer Diodorus Siculus visited the Valley of the Kings in 60 BC, he wrote, "We found nothing there except the results of pillage and destruction." So already back in 60 BC, these had been pillaged so bad that there was really nothing left to them. Today, people can visit these tombs that are opened on a rotation. 11 of the crypts are lit by electric lighting.
The pharaohs who were buried in the valley included Tutankhamun, Ramses I through the 7th, 9th, and 11th, Amenhotep II and 4th, and Seti I. Amenhotep IV is better known as Akhenaten. He ruled for 17 years during the 18th dynasty. He built the city of Amarna for the Aten. His queen was Nefertiti, and his son was Tutankhamun. He gave Queen Nefertiti unusual stature, and she reigned with him almost as an equal, which is depicted in the artwork from the time. Akhenaten died during his 17th year of rule, and his son Shmenkari became pharaoh. This lasted for only a year, and he was succeeded by a female pharaoh, Nefer-Nefer-Uaten, who ruled for 2 years, and some scholars believe that she was his wife. There are even those who think that this was actually Nefertiti. King Tut then became king and was known as the Boy King. This time period is very murky in the historical logs because the Egyptians were secretive about their rulers, and Nefer-Nefer-Uaten was not given a royal burial.
You should get an extra reward for being able to say that name. The Ramses family of pharaohs took reign and moved the capital to Memphis. Their time of rule is when the Jews were enslaved in Egypt. Ramses I was the first king of the 19th dynasty. He was a military commander, and when he died, he was buried in the valley until his tomb was vandalized. He was moved to Deir el-Bahri. Ramses VI has the largest tomb in the valley, and it is decorated with the shattered remains of his immense granite sarcophagus. He was the 5th king of the 20th dynasty, and he obtained rulership by usurping it from his nephew, Ramses V. The tomb of Thutmose III is unique in that its ceiling is spangled in stars, and the walls are covered with 741 deities. Who had to do all of that work? Holy cow. Seti I's tomb is the most elaborate tomb. His sarcophagus was made from alabaster and was brought to England by Giovanni Belzoni. Other nobles ranging from princes to wealthy citizens were also buried in the valley. And now a little break for a word about one of our sponsors.
The air about the Valley of the Kings seems charged with the supernatural. How could it not, with all this talk of deities, demons, magic, souls, and the underworld? Some have wondered if the Valley of the Kings was discovered thanks to the spirits of the pharaohs. The Egyptians have a saying that to speak the name of the dead is to make him live again. There is a widespread belief in ghosts in Egypt. The Egyptians believed that humans had a soul, and they named it Q. Q was depicted as an ibis in hieroglyphs. During the Greek and Roman periods, it was believed the Q could enter other people's bodies and torture them. The Egyptians later developed a belief in the human having 5 components. I need some replaced.
Don't we
I need
all?
some parts replaced.
I think I've got a lot more than 5 components because I'm having a lot break down.
Those components included the heart, shadow, name, Ba, and Ka. The Ba was a soul, and the Ka was a spirit. Death occurs when the Ka leaves the body. In the afterlife, the Ba and Ka come back together and form the Ak, which is similar to the Western ghost. As long as the proper ceremonial rites were practiced, the Ak could reanimate. An Ak could do harm or good. They could even cause nightmares.
The curse of King Tut is a well-known legend. Howard Carter was an Egyptologist who was not university educated. He had been educated at home and gained his expertise in Egyptology through hands-on practical experience he obtained in Egypt. He got his start by drawing pictures of artifacts for archaeologists. Carter met Lord Carnarvon in 1907. Lord Carnarvon was an amateur archaeologist, and the two men worked together excavating in Thebes. In 1914, the two men applied for a license to excavate in the Valley of the Kings, and they received that license. A big plus for Carter in teaming up with Lord Carnarvon is that the Lord had money and was willing to finance their diggings. World War I slowed the men down, but in 1917, Carter resumed his digging. He was positive that King Tut's tomb was in the area because artifacts with his name had been found here. He searched for 5 years to no avail. Lord Carnarvon gave him 1 more year of financing, so he's like, okay, Carter, I'm going to give you money for 1 more year. You've been doing this for 5, and then I'm going to call it quits. On November 4th, 1922, Carter found the stairs leading into King Tut's tomb. On November 26, Lord Carnarvon accompanied Carter as the tomb was opened and they beheld great treasures of gold. And they may have released a curse.
Ruh-roh.
And that would be that curse of King Tut.
King Tut.
The find was reported to the proper authorities, and the press came running. Artifacts were photographed and emptied from the tomb. Things were going smoothly until March of 1923. Lord Carnarvon was bitten by a mosquito. He later nicked the bite with his razor, and it became infected. Within 3 weeks, the Lord was dead. The day he died, the lights in Cairo went out. His dog, who was in England when the Lord died, passed away on the same day as his master.
That's pretty weird.
It is. Carter's pet canary was killed by a cobra shortly thereafter. Stories about a curse began at this time and were fueled by the later deaths of 12 people who had been present when the tomb was opened. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was one of those people who perpetuated the story about the curse of King Tut. Howard Carter claimed to see jackals like the god of the dead Anubis near the tomb. Jackals had not been seen in this part of the desert in over 35 years. Some believed the deaths were caused by a deadly fungus or that the deaths were just coincidences. Many of the team lived on into old age, including Carter. So was the tomb of the great pharaoh guarded by a curse?
Yeah, I remember hearing about this when I was a kid, and then when you get scientists involved and everything, they're like, there was all this stuff on the walls when they went in there. This place hadn't been opened in centuries, and so it more than likely was just this deadly fungus that they had inhaled. And I think a lot of it probably was coincidences as well, because Carter was the first one to go in there. And he spent a ton of time in there, and then he lived into a ripe old age. So clearly whatever it was didn't get him. Shirley MacLaine played a guest role on Downton Abbey in 2012, and she claimed the home where the show was filmed, Highclere Castle, was haunted. Now everybody's probably going, wait, we're talking about Egypt and the Valley of the Kings.
Put the brakes on.
How did we jump over to Downton Abbey and Highclere Castle? And I loved that show. It was such a great show. And it wasn't just haunted by any ghost, Kelly. King Tut. So people are probably really going, okay, how in the world is King Tut's ghost over here at this castle? Well, the home belonged to Lord Carnarvon, his family, and it still does. So this is the Carnarvon castle, basically. MacLaine claimed the tomb of King Tut was once stored in the basement of the home, which is why King Tut's spirit would be here. So she says Lord Carnarvon brought King Tut's tomb back here and stored it down in his basement for a little while, I guess. She also claimed King Tut spooked her while on set. But then, of course, Shirley MacLaine says a lot of things, most of which I don't really believe. She's a little woo-woo, so... There is no doubt that Highclere Castle has some ghosts, though. Whether it's King Tut's spirit or not, we don't know. Highclere Castle has come through Anglo-Saxon times, to the medieval period, to the time of the Tudors, and has elements of the Georgian and Victorian style. So it is so gorgeous. And I know everybody has seen it, because who hasn't seen at least a little bit of Downton Abbey? It's a magnificent castle. Lady Carnarvon lives at the castle, and she has written several books about the castle, some of which include tales of ghosts. So you could only imagine how excited I was when I was looking up the Highclere Castle website, and I'm like, oh, look at all these books she's written. And then I was like, wait, the description for the one that she's just about to release, I think it comes out in a couple months, said that she touches on some of the ghost stories too. And I went, wait, what? How cool. Well, she started a blog. She writes on her blog, by reputation, there are a number of ghosts or presences at Highclere. A few appear apparently in the park. There may be some restless souls by the Bronze Age tumuli. I have to say, I have not looked. One in a yew tree, one in the tower, various presences on the top floor, a lady in black by the Gothic stairs, one who I saw in an old downstairs corridor. That really caught my attention, because I'm like, she's not talking about just all these legends. She actually has seen one. One who sits on the foot of a bed every so often, and one lady who used to occasionally follow me around the gallery. So now we're talking about two spirits that she's interacted with. Everyone here has their own story and the places they don't like to visit on a gloomy evening.
Wow.
So I was like, yay! She's not only written a book that includes the ghost stories, but she's talking about them on this blog that she wrote as well. So just very cool that she's into spirits as well and totally embraces it and has actually experienced them. We might have to try to get a hold of her and say, hey, you want to join us to talk about your ghosts at Highclere?
Yeah, we'll talk about your book.
Yeah. There's an Egyptian exhibit in the basement, and one person said, there is definitely some presence in the museum downstairs. I felt it on a private tour. It seems to be attached to an item in a glass case. Amazing experience in such a beautiful place. And I mean, you're talking about these old Egyptian artifacts, so I have no doubt that something could be haunting the basement that is Egyptian in nature. Whether it's King Tut, I don't know.
The people with the most reports of unexplained activity in the valley are the night watchmen. They claim to hear angry shouting and odd screams. Disembodied footsteps are heard, and the sounds of wheels clattering along. Shadow figures flit about the corridors and ruins. People believe that there's an otherworldly energy that intensifies during the silent hours of the night. One haunting tale from the Valley of the Kings features a chariot that travels through the valley. When the clock hits midnight, the apparition of a pharaoh wearing a golden collar and headdress is seen riding aboard a chariot that is pulled by black phantom horses. The pharaoh Akhenaten is rumored to have been cursed by the priests of his time because he abolished the worship of the Egyptian gods during his rule. The curse has forced him to wander the desert of the Valley of the Kings through the afterlife. Many people have witnessed his apparition wandering.
And Kelly, I just want to jump in really quick because I was like, well, where is King Tut's sarcophagus, as a matter of fact, since you had said something about you couldn't believe that the Egyptians would even let them take it anywhere. It says, most of the tomb's goods are now on display at the Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza. However, Tutankhamun's mummy and sarcophagus are still on display in the tomb in Luxor. So he's actually back in his tomb. So I'm sure they probably took him out for a while. but he's back there now.
He went on a little vacay, as it were.
He might have gone on a little vacay, gone over to Britain for a little bit. I don't know, but just because Shirley MacLaine says it, I'm certainly not going to believe it.
It doesn't mean it's true.
Anyway, this is a story from the Moon Mausoleum website. It's called The Story of Khonsumheb and the Ghost. The beginning of the story is lost forever, as it being a fragment of some pottery, so the full length of it is nowhere to be found, but it is implied the story is set in the Theban necropolis, a burial place near the Valley of the Kings and Valley of the Queen. So these are all kind of like across from each other. If you look at a map, they're all in that same vicinity. The burial city was built at the west bank of the Nile near the ancient city of Thebes, which at the time was the capital, and was perhaps even the biggest city in the world at that time. It's hard to believe that it's basically in ruins now, but it used to be the biggest city in the world. The ruins of the city lie within the modern-day city of Luxor in Upper Egypt. At this time in the New Kingdom, Thebes reached new height of prosperity. It was the time right before the decline of the great city, and it would soon fall into unrest, strikes, and looting of the necropolises. But before all of this, a man had to spend the night next to a tomb in the Theban necropolis, literally meaning the city of the dead. He is unnamed in the fragment of Khonsumheb and the Ghost. Perhaps he was just walking by, perhaps he was a looter, perhaps he was a servant in the place of truth. That was an ancient Egyptian title of the people working in the necropolis. The servants in the place of truth constructed the eternal dwellings of the kings and isolated themselves to safeguard their secrets. Isn't that interesting? I had no idea. So it's basically if you were going to build a tomb, you were sworn to secrecy and pretty much couldn't be around anybody or have a family or anything like that. They lived in the village Setmat, which was called the Place of Truth, in the Holy Land of the Dead, today known as Deir el-Medina. The man was woken by the ghost residing in the tomb. Was he afraid? Perhaps not if he worked there. Perhaps he was terrified, especially if he was a looter, trying to steal the possessions in the tomb. So he's basically saying, it might be a good thing or a bad thing if a ghost comes upon you. Were you being good or were you being bad? In any case, he went to the high priest of Amun, Khonsumheb, and told him what had happened in the tomb. The high priest of Amun takes matters into his own hands. He stands on his rooftop, calling to the gods to summon the ghost, invoking the gods of the sky and the gods of the earth, southern, northern, western, and eastern, and the gods of the underworld, saying to them, "Send me that august spirit." And it does. I grew and I did not see the rays of the sun. I did not breathe the air, but darkness was before me every day, and no one came to find me, the ghost says. Khonsumheb asks his name. Nebuchadnezzar, son of Achmen and of the lady Tamshas, the ghost answers. So how does one please an ancient Egyptian ghost? Khonsumheb at least offered to rebuild his tomb, making it better with a gilded Sisyphus wood coffin to make peace with the ghost. But the ghost doesn't trust Khonsumheb and his intentions. So what do? Khonsumheb sits down with the ghost, starts to cry, and shares his unhappy fate. I will remain here without eating or drinking, without growing old or becoming young. I will not see sunlight, nor will I inhale northerly breezes, but darkness shall be in my sight every day. I will not get up early to depart. Then the ghost proceeds to tell about his life on earth, how he was an overseer of the treasuries and a military official under Pharaoh Rahotep. When the ghost, Nebuchadnezzar, died in the 14th regnal year of Pharaoh Mentuhotep, the ruler gave him a canopic set, an alabaster sarcophagus, and a 10-cubit shaft tomb. But time took over the tomb, and over the centuries, the tomb partially collapsed, allowing wind to reach the burial chamber. Nebuchadnezzar also told Khonsumheb that others before him offered to rebuild his grave, but never did. Khonsumheb says to the ghost that he will do it, and also offers to send 10 servants to make daily offerings at his grave. But the ghost says that wouldn't be necessary or of any use. You'd think since he's upset, he would be like, yeah, I'll take whatever you got. Now, here, the text of Khonsumheb and the ghost on the pottery breaks, and in the next fragment, 3 men are sent out by Khonsumheb to search for a proper place for Nebuchadnezzar's new tomb. They find it at Deir el-Bahari, near to the causeway of the mortuary temple belonging to Pharaoh Mentuhotep II. This is the end. The text suddenly ends there. But perhaps Khonsumheb honored the last wish of Nebuchadnezzar, giving peace in his afterlife that all the Egyptians were all so desperate at having. I thought that this would be fun to share with the listeners because it kind of gives you an Egyptian look at a similar story for us. Is what is making this spirit of unrest? What do you want me to do? Wait, your tomb has been disturbed? what if we give you a proper burial?
Yeah.
Will that put the spirit at rest? So they're kind of doing the exact same thing here.
Right. And thank you for reading all of those names. And our apologies.
I'm sure I
these
mispronounced them.
And they're not easy to find online either for correct pronunciation.
I mean,
so
they're ancient
our
Egyptian
apologies.
names.
Did spirits of the pharaohs lead archaeologists to find their lost tombs? Did the opening of the tombs release ghosts and curses? Do the ghosts of pharaohs still continue to roam the Valley of the Kings? Is the Valley of the Kings haunted?
That is for you to decide. Well, I know this is one place we will never see because there's no way I'm flying over to Egypt. But how cool. If any of you have ever been to Egypt and gotten to see a pyramid or anything or the Valley of the Kings, please let us know. It sounds like such a cool place.
Indeed.
I want to thank you guys for joining us on this Redux. I've been your host, Diane.
And this has been Kelly.
You take care now.
Bye-bye. Oh, I'm looking forward to doing this Redux.
Getting ready to go to Egypt, are ya?
I am.
You ready to go back?
My arms are a little tired already. I'm ready to flap.
Why? Because I was flapping my arms over here like, are you ready to go? We're doing the chicken dance, everybody. Join us.
I'm going to fly there. The Book of Adoring Re in the West was reserved specifically for pharaohs and high nobility.
Nobility.
What did I say?
Nobility.
Nobility.
It's like Ovaltine.
Oh, my brain. And high mobility.
Kelly, not mobility, nobility.
This is what happens when I wake up at 3:45 a.m. This lasted for only a year, and he was succeeded by a female pharaoh. God.
Feral. She's feral. Carter met Lord Carnarvon. Carnarvon,
you say? Who's Carnarvon?
Carnarvon.
Oh.